From Russian beetles to giant African snails, the U.S. is under assault, and it's costing us billions.
Wow. So you guys covered the snails earlier this week.
Right.
We learned that at LAX they intercepted 67 live African snails,
Giant.
which once they've eaten through your garden, they will eat the paint off your house. Those things are so dangerous. And this is the $2 billion figure. That's how much the government spends fighting invasive species. The damage they do is around $120 billion to agriculture, to industry. It is a very serious and growing problem to our economy.
Now, daily we are told of the dangers faced in the world, and certainly here at home, from various forms of terrorism designed to, at the least, disrupt our lives and cause us a small form of grief, or at the very worst, kill us in unimaginable ways that would seem more fitted to Hollywood science fiction. From computer viruses to suicide bombers, the stress level is at new heights, and rarely is there talk of those weapons we cannot see, such as biological warfare and bioweapons. That still simmers under the surface. So does the threat of invasive species doing to America what normal weapons simply will not. Welcome to MidPoint. Associate Professor of Anatomy and Physiology at Laboure College in Boston, Dr. Lawrence Roberge joins us today. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great honor and pleasure.
People hear the words $2 billion and they think of, be very serious now, little tiny snails, a moth here and there, little things like that. People just cannot put their brain around the fact that little bugs like this are billion-dollar pests and are causing us such grief.
They're causing us a lot of things, but let me throw out to you those, quote, snails also carry a unique type of rat lung parasite, which would be devastating if just their slime was picked up by human beings. That's why they were handled with gloves. But let's go beyond this. What we're talking about is there are some invasive species that have the potential to destabilize the food productivity and to enhance the disease situation for the United States public health, as well as our agricultural productivity. If one looks at some of the pathogens or some of the introduced species that I'm talking about, such as striga, which is a plant parasite, one could completely destabilize and destroy the corn crop in the United States, thereby having a cascading effect, reducing the food output, reducing the animal feed output, reducing our basically our commodities in exchange, as well as our productivity in biofuels. This is what some of my research was based on, and I base it also on the counter strategies necessary to detect and determine if we are under an invasive species form of biological attack.
Is it simply, though, to the point now, and I base this on a lot of the stories that I have read, a lot of the stories that I have heard, and I also look at one invasive species, which is the Burmese python, that has now fairly taken over the Florida Everglades and is now the top of the food chain there. They continue to have people that they hire to go out there and hunt them down, yet they can't get a handle on it. Have we reached the point where, for a lot of these invasive species you're talking about, we've already lost the war?
We may have lost the war. If you think about it from this perspective, for example, the gypsy moth. The gypsy moth was introduced by a knucklehead who thought he was going to try to crossbreed them with silkworms, and they have devastated, going all the way out to the Midwest now. I reside in Massachusetts. That's where it was originally started, and in less than 100 years, it has spread out to such a degree we really have no control. But the problem now is, and you have to understand this, it's not just dropping a species into a non-native territory. It is being able to have the capability to have computer modeling so that we can understand the spread, the impact, and the subsequent destruction. And when we talk about subsequent destruction, as with all biological weapons, you have to look at it from the perspective of agricultural productivity, ecological impact, public health impact, as well as the economic and commodity impact globally. Keep in mind one other thing. We are the United States. We have a much, much more robust amount of resources to manage and do interdiction and to do eradication. In some countries where they don't have the capability, where they have much less variety of foodstuffs, for example, you could destroy an entire country and bring them down without firing a shot.
All right, a couple of minutes I have left here. There are those who are using the phrase, and I never thought I would see this, the phrase weaponization of invasive wildlife by terrorist organizations.
Yes.
There are people right now, I swear, I can see eyes rolling everywhere going, come on, that really can't happen. Can it?
No, it can happen, and we actually have had historical incidents where individuals did this, both when they were doing the medfly conflicts and the medfly eradication efforts in the 1980s. We have had several other cases of this occurring, and our military modelers and military contingency planners, both in the United States Military Department of Defense as well as other areas, have already been doing some planning to see, these things could possibly happen. And what would be the massive impact of this? Could you imagine that suddenly within a season or two, our wheat crops were completely destroyed by wheat stem rust? Could you imagine that we would basically have now new epidemics of diseases? You look at Chikungunya disease, which I just wrote about recently. That's come in. It's now invasive. It's now getting settled in. It's going to become endemic. Many, many people are going to suffer from it.
All right, so about a minute or so that I have left here, we've pretty much scared everybody right now to actually go out of their house or to eat anything that might be grown in America. So what do? I mean, where are we now with $2 billion and billions of dollars of food being lost and our lives being threatened? Are we doing anything right now?
There have been efforts. The APHIS, the USDA, has been doing a remarkable amount of work, but they really need to be aware of how this systematized approach is going to be part of the next generation of biowarfare. And we really need to get our heads out of just merely thinking smallpox, anthrax, Ebola, and plague. Because what's going to come down the road is ecosystem destruction as well as eradication of essential resources that we use. These were sometimes theorized in the past, but they have come to fruition today.
About 20 seconds or so that I have left here. Are we underestimating enemies that we think may come after us with conventional weapons, but may be planning to do just this?
Yes, very much. And what's sad about it is that I had sent many different copies of documents to many different individuals in the White House. I've gotten better responses, ironically, from Russia Today media sources and Chinese and Iranians, which of course I'm not going to necessarily give them the whole kit and caboodle, but my own government has not paid attention sufficiently. Homeland Security a little bit, FBI a little bit, but they really need to be up to speed, and they are not. And I can tell you right now, the Obama administration, with all the people that they have in the White House, have not really moved on this at all.
Dr. Lawrence Roberge, we'll keep an eye on this. We thank you so much for your time and scaring us all. It's just the way it works. Thank you so much, Doctor. Next on the docket, national outrage at Rick Perry's call for the National Guard. That and so much more when MidPoint continues.